Every denominator is not written the same, so let's start with that. Let's make all denominators be of the same expression. But let's make a small observation that is going to help us solve for x a little bit faster. If I approach it the same way as before, we needed to multiply all denominators. But notice, and when I multiply just the first two, x times x plus 2, this is going to give us x squared plus 2x, which is the same denominator as we have on the right-hand side. So what we are saying is that this value of x, we can write it as x squared plus 2x by multiplying times x plus 2. And the expression of x plus 2, we can also write it as x squared plus 2x just by multiplying by x. And the right hand side, it's already x squared plus 2x. So instead of multiplying every single denominator with each other, let's try to write down every single denominator to be equal to the expression of x squared plus 2x. That is an expression that all denominators have in common. So now let's do that. Let's get our first fraction. We already have x. If we multiply times x plus 2, we're going to obtain x squared plus 2x. So let's do that. Let's multiply x plus 2, top and bottom. Let's move to the next fraction. We have x plus 2. If we multiply times x, we're going to obtain x squared plus 2x. So let's multiply x top and bottom. And the right hand side, it's already x squared plus 2x. So let's just write that down. So now let's multiply each fraction individually. Let's distribute the numerator. 3 times x, that is 3x. And 3 times 2, that is 6. Now the denominators, let's just write it as x squared plus 2x. Let's move to the next multiplication. We can distribute the numerator, that is going to give us x squared. The denominator, the multiplication is x squared plus 2x. The right hand side, let's just bring that down. In the left hand side, since both fractions have the same denominator, let's just combine the numerators. And now let's write it using just one denominator. The right hand side, let's just move that down. So just like we did before, they share the same denominator, we can cancel them out. So now we have an easier equation to solve for. X squared plus 3x plus 6 equals to 4. Let's start by setting the equation equals to 0. So let's move the 4 to the left hand side. And the same scenario as before, here we have a trinomial, a quadratic equation. Let's try to solve this by factoring. Let's look for two values that if we multiply, it's equivalent to 2. But if we add them up, it is equivalent to 3. Well, notice that those values is 2 and 1. If we multiply 2 and 1, that is equivalent to 2. And if we add 2 plus 1, that is equivalent to 3. So this is a combination that we're looking for. Let's rewrite our equation. Instead of writing x squared plus 3x plus 2, let's write it as x, and the first value that we use, which is 2, and x, and the second value that we use, which is 1. So now let's set each multiple equals to 0. So our first solution, it is going to be of -2, and our second solution is going to be of -1. But just as we did before, notice that there were some variables on the denominator in our initial problem, so we have to check for extraneous solutions. Let me erase some of the work, and let's try to see if we have extraneous solutions. So let's consider the two solutions that we found previously. Our first solution was of a value of -2, and our second solution was of a value of -1. If we get -2 and we plug it into the first denominator, that's not going to give us 0, so that's okay. But notice that when we get -2 and we plug it in to the second denominator, this is going to give us a value of 0. Here we have a denominator which is equals to 0. So x equivalent to -2, it is not a solution. Let's not consider it. So now let's check the value of -1. When we plug it into our first denominator, that's just -1. So that's okay. When we plug it in to the second denominator, that is equivalent to +1. So that's okay. When we plug it in to the third denominator, here we're going to get 1 minus 2, which is equivalent to -1, which is okay. So we are done. The only solution that we will consider, it is of a value of -1 because it did not give us 0 on any denominator of the problem that we were given. Hello. If you would like to continue learning about mathematics, you can check out the videos on the left.